This week on LTC News, a pipeline explosion of voices.
What do we want it? Now, please! What do we want? You!
Saddling up in the summer.
The great opportunity about camp is that you get to ride every day as opposed to once a week.
And Mill City Grows is growing.
Oh, and peppers. I got peppers over there too. That's how I make my sofrito.
Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. Climate activists staged a loud protest at City Hall on May 15th that shut down the City Council's Environment and Flood Issues Subcommittee meeting. Led by Councilor Karen Cirillo, the committee had invited the energy company National Grid to attend in order to explain its proposal to enlarge a gas pipeline through Lowell. But the protesters would not let the National Grid representatives speak.
So National Grid, we only have an hour. Get to your presentation. Thank you. My last few. Oh,
What do we want? You to lead! When do we want it? Now, please! What do you want? You to lead! When do we want it? Now, please! What do we want? You to lead! When do we want it? Now, please! What do we want? You to lead!
What happened was a disruption. It was inappropriate, and I am very frustrated with what happened this evening, and that's why I called the meeting to adjourn.
The police were called to clear the room and the meeting was canceled. Jay Mason, the chair of the Lowell Sustainability Council, was also disappointed.
We were here tonight to ask National Grid questions that we've developed over a couple-month period. We put together a not a task force, but a subcommittee, and that subcommittee is charged to prepare objective and factual-based questions with supporting research to uncover the issues and concerns and implications of the project. The issue is fraught with a lot of emotion. There's a lot of concern about fossil fuel energy and gas in general. You increase a pipe size by 6 to 8 inches to 12 inches, that's as much as a factor of 4 times more potential, and I think there's a lot of emotion and concern about what that actually means.
The protest was about a pipeline expansion. They want to take a pipeline and enlarge it from 6 inches to 12 inches. But for me, the protest was a lot more than that. Expanding fossil fuel infrastructure is the reason that we are not stopping climate change.
The rationale that National Grid would have us buy is that it's needed to tide us through times of peak energy demand, and particularly in cold winter months or the peak of the summer. What studies from the Attorney General's office has shown is that we actually do not need additional pipeline capacity. We can meet the needs that occur for just a few hours a year through increased energy efficiency.
Pipelines only bring more problems. As the diameter of the pipeline goes up, it becomes more, carries more fuel, and could, if anything should, heaven forbid, happen, it will pollute the neighborhoods and endanger people's lives.
We understand that sustainability, it's economic, it's a social justice component, and it's the environment. And we're trying to make sure that we honor those 3 pieces of that sustainability puzzle and make sure that they get proper attention.
LTC News will come back to this story when National Grid has answered the Sustainability Council's questions about why they believe enlarging the pipeline is important and about the costs involved. The City Council meeting of May 8th was dominated by discussion about the school department budget. The city proposed big cuts, including $1 million from the high school, but school committee members warned that such cuts would be harmful to Lowell students. Manager Donahue said she understands the importance of the schools, but the city has a very tight budget with many issues that need to be addressed. No city department received increases, and almost all are facing cuts.
Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby offers its sincere congratulations to Juan Carlos Rivera.
At the City Council meeting of May 15th, the councilors congratulated Juan Carlos, a staff member of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell, on winning the National Boys and Girls Club Award for Professional of the Year. He was selected out of 60,000 other professionals across the country. Quite an honor. The council unanimously adopted the city administration's recommendations on implementing the sale of recreational marijuana in the city. Lowell stands to benefit economically, with 3% of the 17% sales tax going directly to the city. And there was talk and a motion response by Henry Marchand, director of the Lowell Office of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, about bringing back the Tour de Lowell, a day of bike races that was held in the city for decades. The event ran bicycle races for kids, adult amateurs, and national racers. The city hopes to revive the Tour de Lowell next spring. Mill City Grows is an organization in Lowell that continues to grow itself. Working with UMass Lowell and the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture, they've built a new greenhouse that incorporates many energy-saving features, and the structure is as much about education and sustainability as it is about growing vegetables.
We've got an automatic vent system that's on a thermostat, so the vents open and close based on what the temperature is inside, that we want to maintain a constant temperature. We have integrated gutters so that the condensation in the greenhouse is caught and is directed towards, we have a large storage tank for water that is actually captured from rainwater.
Any overflow from the water tank is diverted outside to planting beds.
So the whole idea is to use the resources you have in a way that's multifunctional before just letting them kind of flow out and run into the river. Similarly, we have some photovoltaic cells that are mounted on the greenhouse to supply the battery with energy that will be really helping to maintain the greenhouse systems as well. We have a lot of student volunteers who come out and help us build and maintain this space. We've got a lot of student clubs and sports teams and groups, alumni groups that come out and get involved. And we definitely have heard from professors who want to bring classes out and really utilize this space as an outdoor classroom and learning lab.
The greenhouse allows the organization to extend their growing season significantly. Most crops that are started in the greenhouse will then get transplanted into the Mill City Grows farm on Pawtucket Boulevard.
And that food then in turn gets distributed across the city, including we're working with UML to see if there are opportunities to bring food grown here in Lowell into the dining services here at UMass Lowell.
Mill City Grows has just added a new community garden on Hampshire Street in Centreville to their growing list of garden sites across the city. To help build the garden, they turned to longtime partners, the Mission Continues, a local veterans service group.
They came out on a work day earlier this spring, helped us put together all the panels for these garden beds. And then just 2 weeks ago, we had a big community volunteer build day that involved Mission Continues volunteers, gardeners, neighbors, volunteers from the community at large. And we put together these garden beds, we filled them up with soil, and people started planting.
I got cilantro, I got scallions, jalapenos, lettuce, beets. Oh, and peppers. I got peppers over there too. That's how I make my sofrito. Everybody knows.
Overall, we have about 17 different languages spoken at our gardens, with folks representing over 30 different countries. So the gardens really, truly are a reflection of Lowell, and you see that diversity in the crops that we see grown. It's interesting to see that lots of crops are also cross-cultural. We have like epazote, which is a Mexican herb, with eggplants, just a whole variety of crops that are being grown throughout our community gardens.
A garden in every school, a garden in every neighborhood, everybody having access to fresh, healthy, local food. That's our dream.
There's an official ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Hampshire Street Garden on Wednesday, May 23rd at 5:30 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Are you considering fun summer activities that get you out of the city? You may want to try horseback riding. There are several options close by Lowell, but today we'll take you to Ironstone Farm in Andover, a nonprofit that offers programs for both children and adults.
So Ironstone Farm was created in 1960, actually by a former school teacher, Dick Donovan. Over time, it was for thoroughbred horses to recuperate here. And over time, they started to have groups of people with special needs come to ride, just as a fun thing to do. And that program, which was all volunteer, it grew, and they saw such a difference being made that a nonprofit was actually incorporated in 1983. And as doctors started to see the benefits, both occupational and physical therapy, and therapeutic riding for different populations, including people on the autism spectrum. The nonprofit grew enough that it was able to buy the farm, and now Challenge Unlimited and Ironstone Farm are one.
So Ironstone has a ton to offer all ages. We have a summer camp that is for ages 7 to 16. It's all inclusive, boys, girls, disabilities, abilities, all levels. You don't have to ever have ridden before. A lot of times some of our most solid riders started at camp. The great opportunity about camp is that you get to ride every day as opposed to once a week, so you're able to get a little bit better, a little bit faster.
So we offer recreational riding for people of all abilities, and then we offer therapy. So for instance, early intervention for kids 0 to 3, where a doctor will suggest that this is an appropriate therapy for them. We offer therapeutic riding, which can be for really all ages. And we offer programs for different groups. We have special programs for people who've been diagnosed with cancer, for veterans, could be veterans with post-traumatic stress or other anxiety type issues. We do leadership programs for teens, so there's a wide variety of different things that happen here, but primarily recreational riding and therapeutic riding.
Most of the lessons happen in the ring, but there are also trails for those who prefer riding Western style.
Our Western riding program is really starting to grow. What's great about the Western side of things is a lot of times in English, it's very focused on jumping, going fast, performance. And with Western, it's all about having a good time, connecting with the horse. People think Western and they think, oh, that's for people that don't know how to ride. And it's absolutely not the case. What happens is when I get an English rider into a Western saddle, they respect it very quickly. There's so much to learn, and there very much you can go to the performance side, but a lot of times you get a connection with the horse. You get to slow down. You get to enjoy what's around you. The comfy saddle, the saddle's comfy. Either way, the horse is comfy, and it's just about having a good time. So we have one main trail. It's a long trail that goes over the top of the hill here. And then we're also working on a couple other ones that actually go back through the woods that right now are green cut that we just ride with some of our Western riders that have been riding for a while. So right now, our long trail only goes about 10 minutes. The two we're working on can actually go up 45 minutes to an hour. And hopefully we're gonna have at least one of those open by midsummer, which is great because you get the shade, it gets you out of the sun. And like Emily said earlier, you forget about everything else that's going on and you're able to just enjoy the moment.
For more information about all the programs offered at the farm, visit their website, ironstonefarm.org. UMass Lowell has produced top-tier talent on the athletic fields, and the latest example is Connor Hellebuck, a goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. He played for the Riverhawks from 2012 to 2014 before he was drafted in the 5th round of the NHL draft by Winnipeg. Matt Nelson has the story.
Former UMass Lowell Riverhawk goaltender Connor Hellebuck is one of 3 finalists for the NHL's VEZINA Trophy, awarded annually to the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. At UMass, Hellebuck allowed 84 goals in 53 games for a 1.6 goals against average and a .946 save percentage, while helping the Riverhawks to win back-to-back Hockey East championships, and he was named the Hockey East Tournament MVP in both years. In 2014, he won the inaugural Mike Richter Award as the top goaltender in the NCAA.
Well, he's been a big part of our program in his 2 years, his short 2 years here. I think he ended up with 52 wins and 12 shutouts in those 2 years. So he had a tremendous career here, and he's continuing that trend in the National Hockey League, which is a lot of fun to say because very few goalies can have that type of success at the next level.
And then going to UMass Lowell was a big jump, and having the organization around me that I did, and even the players, was huge. Everyone wanted to get better. Everyone wanted to make me better.
During the regular season, he went 44, 11, and 9 with a .236 goals against average and a .924 save percentage to go along with 6 shutouts.
Is stopped by Hellebuck on the far side, sliding over. Coming in there was Green. 4-0 victory over St. Louis here tonight. Connor Hellebuck, 2nd shutout of the season and his 8th career.
For Hellebuck, the name of the game is improvement.
I saw some things kind of leaking in my game, and I wanted to tighten some things up. And I went got a new agent and a new trainer, and they're kind of talking about how the goalie moves and what he describes as biomechanics, and it's the way the goalie moves and the muscles the goalie uses to move, and I really strengthened on those and used that and transitioned it to the on ice, and it made everything nice and tight. I said I need to prove that how much I care and what I'm willing to do to make myself successful. And I think I came into the training camp ready to prove something. I think I use that as motivation because I know what I'm capable of, and I know I was a little bit off of that last year and I could give so much more, and I think that's what I wanted to prove.
McDavid back in behind the net. McDavid back toward the line for Sekera. He walks the line. Sekera near side for McDavid. Lets the wrist go. Glove down by Hellebuck. Oh, look what I got. And he'll hang on for a stoppage.
Hellebuck, only 24 years old, is the first VEZINA finalist in Winnipeg Jets / Atlanta Thrashers history. His 44 wins broke Tom Barrasso's record for the most by an American-born goaltender, and his 9 straight wins to end the regular season is a franchise record. Hellebuck is continuing to make the UMass Lowell Riverhawks proud as he has backstopped the Winnipeg Jets to the Western Conference Finals against the upstart Vegas Golden Knights. Winner of that series has the right to play in the Stanley Cup Final. Alanna, back to you.
In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with candidate for State Senate John Drinkwater.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun, 491 Dutton Street, Lowell's great newspaper. With me today is John Drinkwater from Lowell. John is one of the Lowell candidates that's seeking to replace Eileen Donahue as State Senator from the 1st Middlesex District. John, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Why did you get into this race?
Well, I've been an advocate for public policy throughout my career. I've spent my career working in the labor movement. I'm currently the legislative director for the Mass AFL-CIO.
What do you do in that position?
Well, we set an overall legislative agenda, a pro-worker legislative agenda, both that supports and strengthens labor unions in the Commonwealth, and also just raises standards for all workers generally, both union and non-union.
So you spend a lot of time, you live in Lowell, obviously, you live in Belvedere, right?
Correct.
You spend a lot of time at the State House.
Yes, yeah. Through my role at the AFL-CIO, I'm there, testifying on various pieces of legislation or testifying against legislation that would seek to weaken unions or hurt, standards for workers, and pushing legislation as well. So yeah, I'm down there, helping to push a
So even though you've never held political office, correct?
Correct.
You're more than familiar at the state level, anyway, with the legislative process and how bills get filed and how bills are heard and whether they're eventually rejected or signed into law, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say I'm quite familiar with the process, and I think coming from an advocacy role, it gives you a pretty unique perspective. And frankly, being down there and working on issues that feel like common sense, issues that we know that voters want, particularly where advocates have kind of gone around the legislature and collected hundreds of thousands of signatures to qualify issues for the ballot. As you continually push those, it can get a little frustrating, and I guess my reaction to that is, it made me want to run for office, just to get in there and kind of use that commitment and just laser-like focus to try to get things done and bring it, inside the chamber and the Senate to try to push for some good public policy.
Now, I first got to know you last November when you served as a moderator and I was on the panel for a Lowell City Council and School Committee debate at the Little Theater at Lowell High School that was sponsored by the United Teachers of Lowell. That's right. In consultation with the AFL-CIO and some of those other labor groups. Were you thinking at all back then about running for office, or was it on your radar? Of course, we didn't know then that Eileen Donahue was going to be out, but anything on your radar back then, like Lowell City Council or school committee?
Yeah, it was always something I had thought about, and frankly, I love the job that I'm doing right now as legislative director for the AFL-CIO. I mean, it's honestly kind of a dream job for me. So I wasn't really seriously contemplating my next move, but when the Senate seat opened up, I had to give it some serious thought. Both is it something that I would want to do, which I decided that it was, and then the decision was kind of, well, what is it going to take to win, and am I willing to put in the work and make the sacrifice to run, which I decided, I thought I could make enough of a difference that it would be worth it. So, no, I can't say it was really on my radar at that time, but, just kind of had to think quickly when it opened up.
I just want to go back to one thing you said earlier about being the legislative director for, a very well-known international labor group that's obviously has a chapter here in Massachusetts. You call it a dream job. Why was that a dream job? Do you come from a long line of labor activists, or your dad, your mother, brothers, sisters, anybody in unions, and why was that a dream job?
Well, I did. I grew up in a union family. My dad is a pipe fitter, now retired, out of Local 537 in Boston, and my mom is a teacher, now retired. She taught in Lawrence.
Okay.
Was a member of the Lawrence Teachers Union, and my grandfather was a pipe fitter with Local 537 as well. And it's not as if unions were part of the dinner table conversation every night, or that they were pushed on me, but they were always there, and I simply grew up with an appreciation for the fact that the opportunities I've had and the comfortable upbringing that I had were really the result of collective bargaining and union jobs. I went to school at UMass Lowell. I was interested in public policy. I studied political science, and I knew I wanted to spend my career, advocating for some sort of positive public policy, and it really just kind of struck me. I saw economic inequality is one of the greatest problems that our state and our nation was facing, and I thought, strengthening unions and building the labor movement was a really great way to address that. So, I decided I wanted to work in the labor movement. I just kind of made a cold call and sent a letter to the AFL-CIO. Yeah, I did, and they brought me in as an intern, and that was 12 years ago now, and I've been with the AFL-CIO ever since. So, I've been fortunate to, that first call I made, to get in there and have been with them since.
Besides the three former mayors and city councilors that are in the race, there's Terry Ryan from Westford, who is a member of the Westford School Committee. They've all held political office, or elected office, I should say. You haven't. What else sets you apart from your opponents in the Democratic field?
Well, sure. No, I think, like I said, I just come at it from a bit of a different perspective, and that's the perspective of an advocate. I think I've been engaged in the state legislature and public policy really, since the time that I've been out of college, and I just think it gives me a bit of a different perspective, and frankly,
what is that perspective? I'm trying to get that perspective. What is it that the state legislature, particularly the Senate, is or isn't doing on behalf of the worker in Massachusetts?
Yeah, well, I think you can.
Or working families.
Sure. Well, I think you can look to issues that have been brought to the ballot, for one, because I think those are areas where advocates have had to, they've seen a problem, they've seen that the legislature either, doesn't have the political will to address it or just, can't address it, and they've gone and done it themselves. I've been a part of the Raise Up Massachusetts coalition that successfully used a ballot measure to get a raise in the minimum wage a few years ago. They went to the ballot to pass an earned sick time law that guarantees workers time off when they're sick or have a sick loved one. And we're now doing the same thing with the Fair Share Amendment to raise some much needed revenue in the state, and with another minimum wage and paid family benefit.
Well, let's talk about a few of those issues. That's a pretty good segue into those issues. How do you feel about when you said fair share before, I had to think for a minute, but the proposal for the millionaires tax?
More commonly known, yeah.
We're hearing all sorts of things. People will drive people from the state. The people who are millionaires are going to go elsewhere. Where do you come down on that?
Well, I think the data shows that millionaires don't leave because of a tax rate. There are, I think, about 8 states that have, as high or higher of an upper level tax rate, and there is just no statistically significant data that shows that millionaires will leave because of it. But there's been, I think, a real recognition, particularly here in Lowell and statewide, that we don't have enough money to fully fund public education, and we don't have enough money to address a lot of the transportation issues we have, like the maintenance backlog at the T. The money's just not there, and I think we can all agree that one of the most fundamental things government can do is provide full funding for education for our kids. So I think that that source of revenue is really the only game in town, and it took a coalition of advocates to move it forward.
But here's one knock on that ballot question that I've heard, is that even if it passes, that there's no assurance from the legislature that they would use it for the stated purposes that have been given already to fully fund education and for transportation projects, that it will just go into a deep hole down there, and the Speaker of the House and the Senate President will just use it wherever they see fit. Now, I know you hear that too. I mean, it's everywhere. So what assurance can you give the voters that if it's passed, that the revenue produced by it will go to those stated purposes?
Sure. Well, there's language right in the ballot question that allocates it specifically for education and transportation. Because of the state constitution, it can't be specifically earmarked or appropriated for a stated purpose within the general appropriations of the state.
Okay.
So it was essentially allocated as directly as constitutionally possible. But there's language in there that dedicates it specifically to education and transportation. And there'll be a lot of watchful eyes, groups that have been advocating for, full funding of the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Commission that are going to make sure, that money, goes to its stated purpose for education.
You mentioned earlier about there's just not enough money to fund some of these objectives. Do you ever see it as a question of priorities? Because we've done lots of stories at the newspaper, and the Globe has done them, the Herald has done them, about salaries. There's a lot of money, both in state and local budgets, that goes to salaries and wages. The late Dick Howe, another former mayor, used to say, I remember when I used to cover city council, that 80% of the city budget is already spoken for because it goes to salaries and wages. So that leaves very little wiggle room, to construct a new roadway or to build a new bridge or to fix the HVAC system at the high school. How do you address those concerns when you hear them? Because I know you will. If you haven't heard them yet on the campaign trail, you will. That, public workers just make too much money.
So let's look at the other side of that coin in states like West Virginia.
My goodness, we only have 2 minutes left. Go ahead, yeah.
Well, I think the other side of that coin is states like West Virginia, Oklahoma, Arizona, where they've been underpaying public employees like teachers for years and years and years on end. And the story is always, well, there's just not enough money. Well, those teachers decided that enough was enough, and they walked out en masse to protest what essentially was just chronic underpayment for dedicated public servants. I don't think that that's the way to go. Here in Massachusetts, nearly all public employees and all teachers have unions and collective bargaining agreements where they can just sit down across the table and negotiate, fair pay and wages. I don't think anybody, certainly your rank and file workers are making exorbitant salaries, but they have the opportunity for fair pay and good benefits, and that's they might not make as much as they would make in the private sector, but quality benefits at least provide them with an incentive to work in the public sector.
I want to just discuss with you, we have about a minute left, maybe we can go just a few seconds over about the other ballot question that has qualified. The gender identity bill, and we were talking about it earlier, and you explained it quite well. So a yes vote would keep the law on the state books that prohibits gender discrimination. Correct?
That's correct. It's a little unique in that it's a yes vote to keep the law.
Yes.
And we definitely want to start getting that out there as much as possible, so voters know.
You're a yes vote there.
I'm going to be a yes vote to keep the current law intact. I think it's all about dignity and respect and acceptance of transgender individuals. I supported the law. I'm proud to say that my organization, the AFL-CIO, supported the transgender public accommodations law and other protections in employment and housing and things like that. And that moved us in the right direction. And I think it would be a very dangerous thing for Massachusetts to roll back protections on transgender individuals, and it would be a bad sign.
Now, that could possibly be a campaign issue because one of your opponents has brought that up in the city council chamber, correct?
Well, that's correct. And I suspect, it'll be a campaign issue. Candidates are going to have to, state their position on any question that's on the ballot. It's a big matter of public interest. So, I suspect that any question that ultimately qualifies for the ballot we'll have to answer for, but I'm certainly in support of keeping the transgender public accommodations on the books.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I could keep going with you. I think we've had a good discussion. Hopefully we have enlightened our viewers just a little bit.
Sounds good.
John Drinkwater?
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 899, online at ltc.org, on Roku at LTC Lowell, or get the link on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us.